Bills Mafia, what is going on? Yes, we are live. We got a four-man crew tonight to break down the Bills firing Sean McDermott. If you haven't been on social media all day, wake up. It's the biggest news topic there is. I have our Twitter guy, Rob Lamka, with us. I got Peter DiBiase, who is usually my guy, my co-host on Mondays, and the president of Built in Buffalo, Lance Nelson. I got him as well. So I'll start with Rob. Initial reactions and how you feeling, brother?
Shocked, just unbelievably shocked. Did we even see this coming? I mean, we all thought this guy was going to be here forever. I mean, we'll get into it, but first reaction is just, I'm still bewildered.
Peter, how we feeling, brother? Mondays. This isn't our typical Monday conversation, but what's going on, man? How we feeling? And before you go, Peter, we were going to have a whole show that I had, what went wrong, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't matter. So, Peter, how we feeling?
Yeah, different Monday. Last week when we ended our show, I was hoping we would be talking about maybe a Bills chance to the AFC Championship game. And when we lost on Saturday, I thought we were going to be talking about a loss and what went wrong and all that fun stuff. But no, one of my friends texted me this morning, said, not a Bills fan, he said, did you see the Sean McDermott news? Didn't see it. Went on my phone, typed in Adam Schefter. He didn't report it yet. Had no idea what he was talking about. Thought I was like getting pranked by my friend's a Jets fan. Thought I was getting pranked. Ian Rappaport pops up. Yeah, I'm still in shock. I think Rob put it perfectly. Like, I don't know when I'm not going to be in shock. I think even next year, week one, when whoever the head coach is on the sideline and it's not Sean McDermott, I would still be shocked. So I think shocked is probably the perfect word for today.
Lance, how we feeling, brother?
Yeah, this one's hard for me. I was probably one of the biggest Sean McDermott advocates in Bills Mafia. I spend hours on Twitter arguing with people as to why the Bills need Sean McDermott and why he's good for the organization. And I hate it. I don't like the way it went about. I don't like how the days progressed. Nobody's said anything yet. Nothing's really acknowledged. The statements put out are kind of bogus. You can love Brandon Beane, I guess, and say that McDermott was the reason for all the shortcomings. I don't buy it. There's probably some truth to it for sure. But I think they both should have gone if you're going to do one, not the other. Now, Beane's going to have a lot of pressure on him sticking around and having to face the music with all the players here and different things. And sure, a lot of players are going to not be here anymore, but I hate it for Sean. I mean, he is a good coach, and there was a lot of things that happened. His first AFC Championship game, obviously, we know how that went. He didn't have success. He made mistakes. He wasn't perfect, but he was a great leader, pillar in the community, and it's just very sad to see it happen this way. So, unfortunately, the dissolution of Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott's relationship led to his firing, and that's just a tough way to go out for Sean, for sure.
Yeah, I think, too, if you look at last year was probably a different tune by Bills fans, right? Last year, the script was probably flipped as to who the fans wanted to see exiting, right? Last year, I feel like it was Sean McDermott. Last year, I feel like a lot of pressure was on Sean McDermott based off of the success, having the MVP quarterback, making it to the AFC Championship, falling short again. But I've said this on social media most of the day, and I've been kind of defending Sean McDermott. This is probably his best coaching job that he's done since he's been here. I mean, you could say what you want about 2017 and getting this team out of the playoff drought, making the playoffs 9-7 with a roster that was just not good on paper, right? You had Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. You had a whole bunch of cast-offs, stuff like that. And then I think a lot of the pressure throughout the season was put on Brandon Beane. Like, what did you do to this wide receiver room to help your MVP quarterback? Like, all these defensive guys that they brought in, he won on WGR, and everybody knows about the tirade that he had there. And the whole time, Sean McDermott is just winning games, right? Yes, they won 12 games. Would we have liked to see them win some of those close games that they lost? Or, we hate that they lost to the Dolphins the way that they did. We hate that they lost, to the Atlanta Falcons the way that they did and just looked completely inept. But Sean McDermott was the guy that got this team to 12 wins, playing with practice squad players on defense that were starting in games. So Peter, I'll ask you first. Where does this team go from here as far as the coaching search? I want to hold off on the Brandon Beane conversation until a little bit later on. Where does this team go from here as far as, do they have a guy in mind? Like, is this something that going into the Denver game, if there was a certain outcome, this was already known in the building? Do you think this was snap judgment? Like, what's your thoughts on where does this team go from here to be successful? Because this is probably the most coveted position, head coaching position in the entire NFL of all the openings right now. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, I was talking to one of my friends, and I was like, I don't know if I love this coaching, like the coaching candidates that are out there. Never really thinking that the Bills' job would open. So maybe I should hopefully reverse course on that. But no, where you would go, and I don't have to start naming candidates. Like everybody and their mother are putting out, oh, I want this guy, I want this guy, I want this guy, I want this guy. Great. That's all great. Half of them are still coaching, like on the Rams, or they're coaching on the Seattle Seahawks. So you can't even talk to them for a potential another couple of weeks, depending if they get to the Super Bowl or not. I would probably lean towards an young offensive coach. I feel like if you go back towards the defensive side of the ball, what was the point of this move? Like, if you're just looking at like fundamentally, not like you need a new figure in the building. Like, if that's the move, I get it. But if you're trying to change philosophy, right? If you're trying to change your philosophy and what you want to do as a team, I think you have to go down kind of the offensive route. Like, is it like a 𝐾𝐨𝐽? Is it like someone like that? That's been a hot name from Seattle that's been tossed out. I would go somewhere there, like a young offensive mind with a veteran defensive coordinator. That's probably where I would go. And Dave, to answer your second question about would the Denver result change anything, I think based off I didn't think this, like, we didn't talk about this last week at all, previewing this game, but based off what happened today, my guess, and I'm only guessing, and this is just an opinion, I think the only way his job was saved if they probably went to the Super Bowl. Because I think if they lost to New England next week and it was like the defense didn't show up, or even if they just lost flat out, like 24-21, I think they probably would have moved off McDermott. You probably don't move off McDermott if you go to the Super Bowl. Obviously, let alone you win the Super Bowl. Obviously, you don't move off him. I think it was probably if you didn't get to the Super Bowl. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with that, but I think that's probably that's where you go to answer your second question there.
I feel like
you turn off the lights.
Hold on a second.
That's what the Bills did today. They turned off the lights.
Give me 1 second. So, Lance, while I'm trying to figure out what happened with my lights here, Lance, talk to me a little bit about, do you think that the success that the Patriots had this year had a hand in what's going on with Sean McDermott? Seeing how the Bills for 5 years won the AFC East and didn't have anything to show for it. Here comes Mike Vrabel and the New England Patriots, and they are one game away from the Super Bowl. What's your thoughts on that?
Lance, you're muted. What is going on? What's worse? We're a mess. The Bills are a mess. Everyone's a mess.
Podcasting extraordinaires.
Yeah, extraordinaire for sure. I think it's maybe part of it. I mean, I really just think it's the relationship between McDermott and Beane that dissolved and caused really more than anything. But I'm sure the Patriots leapfrogging us and winning those games, losing to Miami doesn't help. And what was said after the Miami game, between McDermott and Beane was sort of the start of the decline there from what we know. And I mean, to answer the question bluntly, it's yes, you can't be leapfrogged like that by New England. It's unacceptable for sure. But whose fault is that? I wouldn't blame McDermott fully for that. I wouldn't blame McDermott for half the stuff that some of the fans are in here, even in the comment section, blaming him for. I mean, outside of 13 seconds, maybe that Cincinnati game when you get absolutely run over and nobody was really ready for that, or they just didn't have anything that day for that. But last year, they have the ball with 3 minutes left in the AFC Championship with Josh Allen controlling this offense. Like, how's that on McDermott? I don't really know. And then this year wasn't on McDermott either I mean, the refs basically blew that game, and the Bills should have, that catch with Cooks, changes everything. And unfortunately it doesn't go his way. And now we are where we are. So I don't know. I mean, it's tough to say, like, Sean could have done better in many different instances. He wasn't perfect. He had a lot of mistakes in certain games, and he's got to pay for that with his job, I guess. But I don't know. I don't think it was as glaring as people make it out to be.
Yeah, segueing off what Lance said, like we always every year have those 1 to 2 losses in the regular season where you're like, okay, McDermott should have done this. He should have taken a timeout here. He shouldn't have challenged here. He should have challenged here. How many coaching mistakes did he make this year where we lost a game because of it? I don't think, off the top of my head, none.
Yeah.
Especially the playoff games. Like, I thought his play calling against Jacksonville was unbelievable. He was making adjustments 15 seconds into the play clock because he knew that Liam Cohen is in Trevor Lawrence's headset making adjustments 15 seconds in, and he disguised the defense the entire game and absolutely cooked Trevor Lawrence. He absolutely killed Trevor Lawrence. We know McDermott is great on defense. We're going to miss that. It's really kind of scary that we're losing that. And as a fan, I'm really concerned about next year. What are you getting next year? Are you getting 9 wins next year? You don't even know you don't know your coordinators next year. I highly doubt they bring back Babbage next year. I think he's the guy that is gone no matter what. Joe Brady, is he here next year? Probably not. I would assume at least the coaches can pick, or whoever the head coach is gets to pick their coordinators. But is Brandon Beane going to be that guy? There's so many question marks in the air, and I'm sure it'll get ironed out when Beane actually has a presser. But I'm just concerned right now, man.
I honestly think that it's two coaching styles that they're going to need. They're going to need a guy that has either been like, look, here's my ring. I've won a Super Bowl. I can get you guys to where Sean McDermott wasn't able to. Or it's going to be one of these young and up-and-coming guys. The issues I have is if it's one of these young and up-and-coming guys, first off, we talked about it before we came live, you have to wait. If it's Kubiak, you have to wait until they're done in the postseason because you can't interview anybody as the rest of the way. So you could miss out on some other guys. Number 2, if it is a young guy, you're going to have to hopefully that young guy is going to surround himself with experienced coordinators, whether it be offense or defense, so that he can focus more on the in-game things. Obviously, he'll have his hand in the offensive stuff, but I'm going to ask you guys this, and Peter, I'll ask you first. What's your thoughts on Brian Daboll? He seems to be, because he's a Buffalo guy, he was good with Josh. What's your thoughts on Brian Daboll? Because obviously he had a ton of success here. The offense had a ton of success here, but we saw his failures with the Giants. Now, you could say what you want about how their roster was constructed. You could say what you want about Joe Schoen and some of the player moves that were made and the owner kind of meddling in some of that stuff and drafting and things like that. But what's your thoughts on Brian Daboll? You think he'd be a good fit here?
I live in the Westchester, like New York City area, so I a lot of Jets fans, a lot of Giants fans. So I get WFAN, I get Giants talk, I get Jets talk more than I get Bills talk around here. I would be really opposed to Brian Daboll being the head coach. I just don't think he's a leader of men when you need a head coach, right? Like if Brian Daboll is the offensive coordinator next year and you have a leader of men as a head coach, that is totally okay. Like if Brian Daboll is your OC next year, sign me up. Josh loves him. The offense was, for the most part, pretty good with him. All that kind of stuff. Move ahead. What Brian Daboll did with the Giants, and you can also blame Joe Schoen. Like I'm going to put it out there. Joe Schoen should not be the GM of the Giants right now. Like he hasn't deserved or earned anything enough to be the GM of the Giants. And John Harbaugh even went as far as saying, I'm not reporting to you. I'm reporting to the owner, John Mara. So that's how bad Joe Schoen's been. It's basically just a sitting duck as a GM right now. But no, like what Brian Daboll did with Wink Martindale and how he kind of ran Wink Martindale out as a DC. Like he didn't like how Wink Martindale was very vocal in the locker room, vocal in the organization. I just don't look to play devil's advocate there. You could think, was Brian Daboll just not ready to be a head coach yet? And maybe that's true. Did they tie themselves to Daniel Jones? Yes. And was that a bad idea? Yes. And then did they finally probably get the quarterback in Jackson Dart? Yeah. It was a little too late. Yeah. I just don't know if you can take that kind of risk of a guy that was so poor with the Giants to be your head coach. Like Kevin Stefanski, who went to Atlanta, had a handful of good years with Cleveland, obviously kind of fell off at the end. You can also blame the GM on that as well. Right. He would even be a better option than like a Brian Daboll. I would strongly advise against it. If he wants to be the OC next year, if he's the OC, I'll come on here and I'll say that's a great hire. If he's the head coach, eventually I'll get behind it. But in the short term, I would be very opposed to it.
Lance, I see in the chat about 𝐸𝐿. What stands out to him for you? Obviously, we've seen guys like Liam Cohen, we've seen guys like Ben Johnson, we've seen all these guys have success in their first year. Do you think that's coming to a team that has Josh Allen, James Cook, pretty stalwart offensive line, depending on what it looks like after this offseason with signing guys like McGovern and David Edwards, but does that excite you, thinking about getting a young offensive mind in here mixed with Josh Allen and James Cook? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they can create a nice vibe for sure. 𝐸𝐿 is one of the more exciting candidates available. You mentioned, there's risk in waiting for him, but I think it's worth it if he comes in and can solidify, bring some excitement to the offense. But again, you have to have the guys. I mean, we're talking about a coach who can only do so much with what's on the field. And, there's the biggest part about McDermott's tenure is there was very little player accountability, it seems like. And I said this till I was blue in the face. Everyone immediately went to it's McDermott's fault that this and that. You talk about slow starts in the chat. Slow starts. Well, what are the offensive coordinator doing to make that better? It's not just McDermott. And if you want to pin McDermott as the defensive coordinator, even though Bobby Babich is the defensive coordinator, and I know it's really his scheme and his defense and everything, but the coordinators didn't do him any favors, apparently. The players didn't do him any favors. Like, how is a false start penalty Sean McDermott's fault? Isn't that more on Joe Brady? So how is another offensive guy going to come in here and prevent false starts? Like, what are they going to do to prevent Dion Dawkins from false starting? And when you talk about Josh Allen, James Cook, Khalil Shakir, Dion Dawkins, what did they do to help Sean McDermott? They didn't do anything in the last game, that's for sure, to very much help him. And yes, the defense gave up 30-plus points. Everyone's saying that. Okay, they turned it over 5 times. 6 points are immediately given to them while the Broncos got 2 yards of total offense to get 6 points. So if we give up 27 points in a game, does that make you feel better? Or is that still too much? If that's still too much, okay. They scored 2 touchdowns now on Dane Jackson, or Dante Jackson if you want to go with Tony Romo's guy, and then Darnell Savage. And it's like, so yeah, okay, 13 points off turnovers, 33 total. So 20 points is not that much. Allen's supposed to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. He turns it over 4 times. So blame Josh Allen a little bit here. And I think that's why Josh was so visibly upset. Sure. But it's not all on McDermott. McDermott didn't ask Josh Allen to run down the middle of the field and fumble it because he realized he screwed up at the end and he needed to get out of bounds to stop the clock. And he ends up turning it over. Like, these players are making boneheaded decisions game after game, it seems, and all we focus on is the mistakes Sean McDermott's made. He's made plenty of them. All of you guys are valid for thinking he's made this mistake, that mistake, and he should be fired for it. Fine. I'm okay with that. It's just a weird timing, and it's also really weird to have just Sean McDermott gone. Clean house. If you want to change, then make the change. Because the personnel decisions that have been made outside of drafting Josh Allen, neither of these guys, Bean or McDermott, have done anything that screams amazing to me. So if we're going to change it all, then change it all. But we're not. We're changing a component, and then how far does that go? Like Rob was saying, I think the new coach coming in, does he get to choose all of his staff now? Are we going to get a new coaching staff from top to bottom? I digressed from your question a little bit because I had a point I wanted to make, and I thought that was a great time. But 𝐸𝐿 would be a great fit for the Bills, and they need to bring someone in who's going to bring excitement to the fan base, excitement to the offense. But you got to go get George Pickens, some wide receiver help, stuff like that. You got to go get some guys too. So
I feel like that kind of segues into Brandon Beane a little bit, because I feel like this was Brandon Beane's worst year as the general manager of the Buffalo Bills. I can honestly wholeheartedly say that this was, and I was a Brandon Beane, big baller Beane, thumping my chest guy not too long ago. But after what happened in March and then in April and then on WGR, like I don't see a world where that kind of behavior is okay. Like, I don't know if he got complacent. I don't know if he got comfortable with knowing the fact that Josh Allen is on the team. And last year he was an MVP with really no help at the skill position besides James Cook and Dalton Kincaid when he was available. But I feel like if you're Terry Pagula and you're running a business and you're the guy who's in charge of getting, acquiring the talent, had his worst year, why is he getting a promotion? I don't understand. That's why I titled this The Scapegoat, because I feel like Terry Pagula made a change to make a change. And you can say what you want about Sean McDermott's defense in the postseason and the average points per game and in elimination games and all that kind of stuff. That's great. But this past game is the one that is obviously the one that got him terminated. You look at the players that were on the field. I see people in the chat talking about, well, why was Dane Jackson put on an island? That's because the guy that was supposed to be there was injured. And that's roster construction. You don't have Jamarcus Ingram because you signed Darius Slay, who didn't want to play for you. And you didn't release him.
You have to cover Cortland Sutton, and you have to cover the tight end. You can't just roll everything towards Marvin Mims to cover Dane Jackson.
And that's not even like that. That's not even the point. The major point, the overarching point, is that this roster, we heard it from all the talking heads on social media. We heard it from all the talking heads that are on ESPN and CBS and all those other stations, that this was the worst roster that Josh Allen was carrying into the postseason. So, Rob, let's talk about Brandon Beane. Kind of give me a quick reset or give me a quick synopsis on what you thought when you saw that he was going to be retained and was now going to be the head of football operations. What's your thoughts?
I was absolutely livid because he's the guy that should be packing his bags right now. No questions asked. He should not have a job right now. He should not be working in the NFL right now. After the malpractice of the last two drafts specifically last year, if you go back to that draft, you have one guy that is going to be on this roster 2 years from now, and that's Cole Bishop. Everybody else is not going to be on this roster in 2 years. And if you can even go back to this year, Max Harrison, we haven't seen too much from him. Some other guys, we've seen splashes from Deion Walker, but these drafts have been terrible. 2023 specifically, you have Kincaid in the first round. You chose not to be aggressive and trade up for a JSN or a Jordan Addison, and instead you end up with a slot tight end that you ended up not playing in the slot because you had to fire your OC because it wasn't working. What you wanted to do to replicate the Panthers offense from 2015 in the year 2024, 9 years later, you try to go to a Super Bowl with a two tight end offense? Are you kidding me? Just the decisions that this guy makes and signing Curtis Samuel to $9 million a year. Like, am I wrong? I just don't understand. In free agency,
you are.
In free agency, instead of drafting a guy that can play the wide receiver 3 in the second round and pay him $900,000 a year, you decide to sign Josh Palmer for $33 million and just chill your cap room away because you just feel like it. And the guy didn't play this year. Regardless of injury, he was on the field 51% of snaps. You're paying him $11 million.
Peter, what's your thoughts on Brandon Beane?
Yeah, I think Rob kind of laid it out there, right?
Right.
Yeah, he's had some. I'm a big devil's advocate kind of guy. Like I think it's fun for a podcast.
Me too, 100%.
Devil's
advocate for Satan.
Sure, Lance. We can say that. But like Christian Benford was a good pick, right? Like I think Dalton Kincaid, when healthy, is a good pick. Cole Bishop was a good pick. I think Maxwell Harrison's going to turn into a good corner. Deion Walker's been I think was good as a rookie, as a D tackle. But I think, Rob, I think you laid it out perfectly. I think if you look at what they've done at the wide receiver position and then the lack of production they've gotten from their edge room, and I blame more Bean for the wide receiver room than the edge room, because he has tried at the edge room. Like Devon Miller going down with a torn ACL in year 1 after having a great start, first 8 games, that's unfortunate. Like
You're not going to get me upset, Peter.
I'm not going to put that on Bean because I don't think anybody should put that on Bean, because like Von Miller was playing at a Pro Bowl, All-Pro level that year. Tore his ACL, was never the same again. Like never. There was a little bit of flashes here or there. We're like, oh, is he ever going to be the same again? He was never the same again. So that was very unfortunate. Like the Joey Bosa move, I thought that was a cool, interesting move this offseason. It's just didn't work at times, and just obviously did not work in the postseason. And you kind of saw that late hit he did in overtime and all that kind of stuff. It didn't work. But Brandon Beane in general having a job, if you're going to fire someone, you fire both. I don't like doing either or. I'm very big on continuity. Like having the same I'm very big on having the same GM with the same quarterback with the same coach, all lockstep. Right. Obviously, you can't do that with Josh Allen, but Josh Allen's different. Everyone's going to want to coach or try to coach Josh Allen, so it's not like a rookie quarterback. So put that aside. I think even if you fired Brandon Beane and kept Sean McDermott, that's a little weird, because I don't like putting a coach with a GM that it's like not his guy. Like the GM takes the job and he's like, well, I didn't hire Sean McDermott. Like I don't like that. So I think, and I don't like what they did either. I don't think they should have kept Beane. I think it's smoother transition to fire McDermott and keep Beane, in my opinion, than have a new GM come in to overstate McDermott, because then it's like, who's in charge? Like, is it McDermott's team? Is it the new GM's team? If you were going to make a move, and Rob, you said it, and they did, you fire both. Because if you fire both, guess what? You can get a GM and you can get a coach, and you can put them together that they want to work together, and no one's forced to work with one another. Like, like if you hire the GM first, obviously he wants the coach to come here because he's hiring the coach, or he's one of the guys making the decisions to hire the coach. If you get a head coach, like let's say you got a John Harbaugh, for example, I'm just putting a name out there, like an CEO kind of guy, then he wants the GM. It's all working together. So I do think goes both ways. Like I don't think you should have fired Beane and kept McDermott, or I don't think you should have done what they did today and fire McDermott and kept Beane. If you were going to make a move, you had to make 2 moves, and they decided to make 1 move. I'm not saying either or were right. I just think they needed to make. I think the facts got lost in translation. I don't think it ever got sent to fire Brandon Beane as well. I think Terry Pagula forgot to hit send on the email to the league office.
I think to kind of extend on what Rob was talking about, and I agree with you too, Peter. I think Brandon Beane traded for Stephon Diggs. Say what you want about how that transpired over the next 4 seasons. Say what you want. He then neglected the position that reinvigorated this team's offense, like we've never seen before. He ignored that position. I don't care about salary cap. I don't care. But it was all
because of McDermott, though, right?
I mean, that brings me up to like our next point. Like we have thought. I know that I have, and I can't speak for you guys, but a lot of the Bills fan base has thought for the longest time that Sean McDermott did not report directly to Brandon Beane. He reported to one guy and one guy only, and that is Terry Pagula. So I think a lot of stuff is going to come out this weekend. Some stuff has already started leaking. I saw that Tim Graham reported that the training staff was reporting to Brandon Beane before they went to Sean McDermott. Like that makes literally no sense. Unless you're telling him that a guy's going on IR, you need to tell the coach, and that would make sense as to why when Sean McDermott was asked during press conferences, what about this player? He'd be like, I don't have that information yet, because he didn't. So I think a lot of how we thought this whole dynamic with McDermott, Beane, and Pagula, I don't think it is what we thought it was. And we saw that today with Beane not only keeping his job, but getting a promotion. And Beane is now in charge of who the next head coach is going to be. So I'm a little bit concerned, because is it going to be a yes man for Beane? Is it going to be a guy with experience that might push Beane to the limit a little bit on things and kind of push the boundaries? And that's where I'm concerned, because I put out a tweet yesterday saying if this is it for Bean and McDermott, it needs to be do things that are unconventional. Be very uncomfortable when it comes to how you process this offseason. No pun intended with the word process. Trade draft picks, dump salaries, trade players, do things that are uncomfortable, because guess what? If you're not here next year, it doesn't matter to you anyways. If you win a Super Bowl, it doesn't matter next year anyways, because you are legendary status at that point. But now that Bean is going to be here, and I saw some reports that people are thinking that Bean's going to be through the draft process and then is going to hire an actual general manager, which whatever, he's still going to be in control of the player personnel. So Lance, what's your take on where this roster needs to go and how much it needs to be changed, knowing now that Sean McDermott was in fact involved in a lot of the player personnel decisions, was involved in drafting, free agency, things like that, because we talked before we came live about Brandon Bean guys, and then there was a ton of Sean McDermott guys. So what's your thoughts on your outlook for this roster going forward?
Yeah, let's see. Let's see how good Brandon Bean really is, because I'm not sure that it was all on Sean McDermott, but if people believe that, that's fine. You can believe that. I mean, it's like, okay, Brandon Bean went and got Diggs, but if all the moves are Sean McDermott's moves, then Sean McDermott got Diggs, and that was a good move. So it's like we're giving credit just to Brandon Bean for the good stuff and then blaming Sean for the stuff that didn't work. 100%. And that's just, it's stupid. I'm sorry. You can't have it both ways. If they were all Sean McDermott's moves, then they were all Sean McDermott's moves, and he gets credit for the good ones too. And he wants to be successful, and his recipe for success was a little bit different than the fan base wanted. It doesn't make sense really to have that recipe when Josh Allen's your quarterback. I can understand that. I can get behind all these reasons. I know why Sean McDermott was fired. The timing of it and the way it was handled is just what I dislike, really. So for the roster, you're going to need to go out and get 5 to 7 wide receivers between the draft and free agency. I mean, you have to look at that position and not ignore it. Don't give Josh Allen the Aaron Rodgers treatment here and disregard that. And then you're going to have to figure out your offensive line, because you have McGovern and Edwards, probably the two main cogs for communication along the offensive line, and your offensive line coach now has retired. So the offensive line's got to be basically either re-signed or restructured. We'll see if Van Prangrager and Alec Anderson are just plugged in and they try to go with those guys on a team-friendly deal, or if they're going to try to re-sign one or both of Connor McGovern and David Edwards. On defense, you probably are pretty solid. You need a corner, right, for depth. Which, with Brandon Bean's prowess then, are all those 6-round picks that have success, are those Brandon Bean guys because they were successful, or are those Sean McDermott picks? What's Christian Benford? How do we decide?
I don't mean to cut you off, but I brought that up in our chat earlier, like all these DBs, because we know Sean McDermott is a DB whisperer. Is that we give Brandon Bean all the credit for Christian Benford, right? Or was that Sean McDermott's coaching? We give Brandon Bean a ton of credit for some of these other guys, but like Cole Bishop, is that Sean McDermott? Jordan Poyer, that's clearly Sean McDermott. Micah Hyde, that's clearly Sean McDermott. Go ahead, Lance. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's cool. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, I don't know where you draw the line or how you know for sure. I guess I would love the factual information of which guys were whose guys. I mean, we know that 𝐬𝐲𝐫𝐿, what that went down wasn't necessarily a McDermott guy. I talked to Mookie Hawkins about that at Wingnuts before, and he, good information, good chat with Mook on that one. And 𝐬𝐲𝐫𝐿 just wasn't favored by the coaching staff, and that's what happened. But we'll see how it comes out. Brandon Bean's got to nail this draft and the free agent period, and we'll see where he comes out. I think you definitely have to just add a couple pieces for depth on the back end of the defense, and then probably figure out your safety across from Cole Bishop, right? And then their defensive line, I really like having Greg Rousseau, maybe some free agent guy, and then Michael Hoyt as your 3 main defensive ends, and your interior should be pretty darn solid. You have Deion Walker, Ed Oliver, TJ Sanders. You have those young enough guys to where you add you add a couple veterans for depth, but otherwise the defense shouldn't need all the assets. Every asset that you have should be weapons for Josh Allen and more weapons for Josh Allen.
But the way that this roster is constructed, it was obviously influenced by Sean McDermott and guys that he obviously thought would fit well in his scheme. And then the offense was, I feel like, schemed up, and Bean signed guys that fit Brady's everybody eats philosophy. This new coaching staff is going to have to look at this roster and say, okay, what kind of system am I going to put out there? And are these players going to work? Is Terrell Bernard, an undersized linebacker, going to work at the Mike linebacker? Is Cole Bishop the type of safety I want in my defense? And that's no knock on either of those two players. That's just, they worked similar to like when Trey came out. Trey was perfect for Sean McDermott's defense. He was perfect. And that's why it worked so well. So like you have a lot of these guys, you know, you have an undersized, we all love Ed Oliver, but we have an undersized, he's undersized. Like Deion Walker's huge, but he's undersized. But that was I know that was a McDermott guy. We saw how he reacted at the combine when he saw Ed Oliver. And you might there might be a defensive guy, head or coordinator that comes in that doesn't want a rotation, that wants beefy guys up front, that doesn't want a rotation at edge defender, that wants bigger linebackers. You know what I'm saying? So that's all stuff that's also got to be taken into account. That's why I'm concerned about results this year. Yes, you have Josh Allen, but if you have guys that are playing in a system that they don't fit, we saw it with Rex Ryan. He ruined this defense. He tried playing guys out of position just because they were on the roster, and what were they going to do? Just have a bunch of dead money? So that to me, it's going to be huge. You know, offensively, obviously, the wide receiver position has to be addressed. It has to be addressed. I don't care what you do with Keon Coleman. Like Joshua Palmer, they need to restructure his contract. Curtis Samuel needs to go away. Like all these other guys that are just guys. That's all they are. So, all right, let's talk about where we think they are going to go, and tell me who you guys want most of all. Who's at the top? Rob, I'll have you go first. Who's at the top of your list of who you would want the Bills to go after as far as head coach? And you can throw coordinators in there if you want to.
Well, first of all, you only do this if you have a guy in mind. Like, you're not firing a coach of 9 years with the success that he has had without a guy in mind. And to me, I've said it earlier today, you need to make the sexy hire. You need the sexy, new, young offensive coordinator to become your head coach. You know, I think 𝐸𝐿 is awesome. He's from the Shanahan tree. We've been begging for a guy from the Shanahan tree for years now, and I think it's just this is as wide open of an opportunity as we will have to get a guy from that tree. I mean, he made Brock Purdy look absolutely incredible in 2023, borderline MVP candidate that year. He made the Saints offense look normal last year, which with those pieces, I mean, that's coaching success. And this year he's in the NFC Championship and he can go to the Super Bowl with Sam Darnold. I mean, and JSN just had a record-breaking season. This guy knows what he's doing. And to me, I want an offensive mind in Brandon Beane's ear saying, you need to be aggressive this offseason. We need receivers. We can't go to the Super Bowl with what we have on this roster. We need a guy like that.
You brought up Kyle Shanahan. Is anybody in here interested in trading a first-round draft pick for Kyle Shanahan?
Absolutely. I would trade 2 of them.
My thought process on that is, yes, sign me up. My other thought process is, I don't know if the 49ers want to move on because he is in a similar situation. Started in 2017, just like Sean McDermott. He's in a similar situation where this year was probably his best coaching job as a head coach. With all those injuries that they had, to make it to the divisional round of the playoffs was amazing. Now, yes, they have Christian McCaffrey. They have a bunch of other great pieces, but I don't know if the 49ers would be willing to move on. But again, he's been there as long as Sean McDermott. He's been there 9 years. He got to the Super Bowl. He didn't win it, but he got there. And I've heard that there's some issues similar to apparently what was going on with Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott between you know, him and the GM in San Francisco. So I don't know. Peter, who's your guy?
I would probably say 𝐾𝐿_𝐾𝐿_𝐫𝐞, but not to repeat what Rob said, and I think Rob made good points, and I would obviously go after 𝐾𝐿_𝐾𝐿_𝐫𝐞. If you want to go like a younger defensive kind of minded guy and you bring in an offensive mind with him, I'm not against going like a Jesse Minter or like a Chris Shula on the Rams. Like Chris Shula on the Rams kind of intrigues me. What concerns me right now, I don't love the offensive minds out there. Like, if you look at a list of like the offensive minds, like 𝐾𝐿_𝐾𝐿_𝐫𝐞, great. Joe Brady, I'm going to pass on Joe Brady. I'm going to pass on Arthur Smith. I'm going to pass on Davis Webb as the head coach. Like, if Davis Webb wants to be the OC, sure, I'm passing him as a head coach. I don't want Brian Dable. Like, I don't want Mike McDaniel. I don't want Cliff Kingsbury. I don't want Matt Nagy or Brian Callahan. Like, outside of 𝐾𝐿_𝐾𝐿_𝐫𝐞, I don't love the offensive minds to be a head coach. So if you miss, or if 𝐾𝐿_𝐾𝐿_𝐫𝐞's not your guy, I would go towards a younger defensive guy like a Chris Shula and a Jesse Minter, and then pair him with a Brian Dable, or pair him with a Mike McDaniel, or pair him with Joe Brady potentially, or Davis Webb, like a Davis Webb with a Chris Shula and Jesse Minter. But the Shanahan thing's intriguing because his contract's up after 2027. So he's coming close to an end of a contract where he is going to have to probably sign an extension. Most coaches don't coach on that one. Like, contracts are up a year before they're actually up for NFLs, because coaches don't like to coach, and they don't want coaches coaching on a 1-year tag. Like, you don't want to be on your final year, because that's like we're seeing with Brian Flores right now in the DC. Like, he's a free agent. Like, Brian Flores is not associated with anyone right now. His contract ended with Minnesota. He can go back to Minnesota, but obviously he's trying to get a head coach job. He can also become a DC on another team. I would trade a first or 2 firsts for Shanahan. Like, I would. I really would, because I think he's a game changer as an offensive mind. And he's taken 2 teams to the Super Bowl with Jimmy G and Brock Purdy. And there's arguments to be made there that there was plays there that they could have won the game, like the Jimmy G one, the deep ball to Emmanuel Sanders. And then in the Brock Purdy Super Bowl, who was it? Was it Ray McCloud that had that fumble in the 3rd or 4th quarter?
So,
of course, it was Ray McCloud. So you have situationals, and they lost an OT in that game, and that's Jimmy G and Brock Purdy. And we can all argue, obviously, Josh Allen is leaps and bounds ahead of those guys. And then you've also dealt with the 49ers injury history. Like, you think the Bills have injury issues at times, like what the 49ers have to go through, just guys just ripping Achilles and ACLs just left and right. Greenlaw running on the field in a Super Bowl got injured. You can't even make that. You can't even make that up. So yeah, I would go after Shanahan. I don't think they probably would give us Shanahan unless they're like, oh my God, someone's giving us 2 firsts, and the GM, what's his name? I can't think of the top of my head, but he's like, I don't want Shanahan anyway. I can get some draft picks for him. Take him. But yeah, I don't know about you guys. I'm a little concerned about the offensive minds outside of 𝐾𝐿_𝐾𝐿_𝐫𝐞. Like, I don't love if you look at a list, I don't love it.
So Kyle Shanahan's intriguing. And I'm not saying it's happening, but there's some tea leaves that I'm going to put out there for you guys, just into the universe. So there was nothing coming out about Sean McDermott being fired. Like, there was stuff that, like, Ian Rappaport, and I think they were just trying to stir the pot because McDermott was the 2nd longest tenured coach after Harbaugh got fired. And it was like, they were saying, well, he needs to win. The pressure's on. Who lost on Saturday besides the Bills? The 49ers.
Yeah.
So it could be 100% coincidental that 48 hours later, less than 48 hours later, Sean McDermott's let go. I'm not saying that Brandon Beane will ever part with draft picks, but if there was a time to part with draft picks, this would be the time. I don't know what Shanahan's relationship is with John Lynch right now. I don't know. I live 45 minutes from San Francisco, so I get all the local radio. And apparently there's been issues for like 2 years now, stemming into the draft picks and signing some of the defensive guys and contracts. And there was a huge deal with Trent Williams last year and all this stuff. I'm just putting it out there. I don't think it's going to happen. But again, I ask you guys the question. There has to be a play here, right? There has to be a reason why it was done now and not a week from now, after locker clean out, postseason press conference, or the end of season pressers, stuff like that. I do feel like how the players reacted in the locker room, it wasn't just, I feel like, to Josh being upset at the podium. I feel like there was maybe some other underlining stuff. Not saying that they knew. I'm not saying Josh knew. I'm not saying they knew, but I feel like maybe there was some pressure there, and it was kind of being put throughout the locker room. So I don't know. Lance, I'll ask you first. Do you think there's a plan in place? Do you think that they already have a guy selected? Now, obviously, there's the Rooney rule, and they have to do their due diligence, because I personally don't want to see in a week that they've hired somebody. I want to see reports that the Bills have interviewed this coach, that they're doing their due diligence. What's your thoughts, Lance?
Well, first on the Shanahan thing, I'm just not sure it's really realistic to whether San Fran would do the deal or the Bills should give up the draft picks. I'm not there yet. I mean, would I love Shanahan as the Bills coach? Sure. But to get him here, I'm not sure that's really feasible. And in interjecting on that, can you just tell me the main question again to make sure I got it right?
Do you think that this is a calculated move? Do you think that before they told Sean McDermott that he was going to be relieved of his duties, that there is a plan for Brandon Beane in place? They have guys that they got locked and loaded that they want to bring in here to replace him. Because to be honest with you, if this next head coach does not make it far into the playoffs, why didn't we just keep Sean McDermott?
Yeah, I've been kind of saying today, I'm like, man, the next guy better come in and win the Super Bowl next year, because, I mean, you're not going to, if you keep Sean McDermott, you're getting to the playoffs and you're going to have another shot at it, guaranteed. And now we'll see. There's a plan. There's 100% a plan. These guys aren't idiots. It's their job to have a plan. So I'm going to think that they do have one. And it's just whether or not the fan base agrees with it or whether or not it pans out. Brandon Beane has shown, I think, that they've had plans to do things, and it's if this, then that. And if the guy that you are targeting accepts, right? It's a two-party equation here. You can't just get whatever you want. So you have to offer someone and they have to accept, obviously. But if you don't get that guy, the first guy you want, what's your backup plan? And how many backup plans do you actually have to go through before you land on the guy? And that's what I'm worried about is, okay, you just treated Sean McDermott a certain way and people are going to know that. And then you want to bring someone else in and say, oh, no, I'm not going to be a piece of shit to you. Just because I was a piece of shit to that guy doesn't mean I'm going to be a piece of shit to you. It's like, if you're a piece of shit, you're a piece of shit. And I just think that Brandon Beane, he may have turned some people off with the way things went down over the last week here.
I'm going to put this up real quick and I'm going to answer it. Marcus Freeman.
Oh, I don't want Marcus Freeman.
I feel like it's on the table 100%.
Any college guy would be just absolutely shocking, honestly.
To kind of piggyback off of what Lance said.
Mike McDaniel would be shocking.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to have him as the offensive coordinator.
Yes.
Yeah. 100%, but I don't want him in charge of the entire game.
I don't need to see him as a head coach with his joggers on and vaping on the sideline and then being really cold.
I feel like, December. I feel like McDaniel would be a really good offensive coordinator here with Josh.
He'd be
he
tremendous.
could do the things that he was limited with Tua.
And he could stay warm in the booth.
There you go.
You wouldn't be cold.
He doesn't like it cold.
No, cold.
And all this stuff I'm seeing online about Tomlin and some of these talking heads from like CBS and NBC and stuff. No, Tomlin is a lateral move and you have to give up draft picks for that. And I saw some comments kind of like egging me on about, Beane's got to use the draft picks. And I agree with that 100%. And I said that I don't think Beane's going to use picks on a coach because this roster is going to need to be retooled. I feel like there's going to be a ton of turnover. And I feel like Beane's going to have to do things that he might be a little bit more comfortable now doing because they're not Beane players. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like there's players that he's okay saying goodbye to or moving on from because they weren't an important cog in the defensive system or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, I know for a fact that when we saw Sean McDermott go up there and complain about Jamarcus Ingram, that was the first sign that I was like, oh, there's problems. Something else is going on here. Like this is not good. So I guess kind of in closing, like what do you guys, and I'll start with you, Rob, and we'll go right down from left to right. Rob, what's your outlook? What are you looking for from the Bills organization in the next week or so to kind of give us some kind of updates? Are you looking for Bean? Are you looking for Pagula? Like, what's going to help you think a little bit easier about the process and like what's going on here?
To me, I think this is the offseason where going off the WGR rant, all of that, I mean, we know Brandon Bean has an ego. Let's be real. We know he does. After that rant, I think that he is pissed off of the way that this fan base has seen him over the course of the last 2 years, specifically this year. A lot of people wanted him fired. I think he's going to have a fire lit up under his ass this offseason, and he's going to be aggressive. We have not seen an aggressive Brandon Bean since his first 2 years in the GM chair. So I think he's going to try it and make some moves. He's going to call up GM, say, hey, what do you want for Justin Jefferson? Or what do you want for A.J. Brown? We need a receiver. Stuff like that. I want to see that again because we haven't seen – I'm sick and tired of trading down to pick up a fourth rounder, these lame moves. Like, just do something nice. Like, I want that big headline. Give me a Brandon Bean headline. That's what I want this offseason.
Peter, how about you, man?
Yeah, I agree. I think Robbie hit the nail on the head there. I think you have to go, obviously, you don't have to be stupid. Like, you don't have to go crazy moves and just screw your team up for the next 4 to 5 years, but you have to find a way to get more star talent on this team. Like, I think Lance, you laid it out when you talked about how the roster is structured and how, like, where do we need to add here? I think there's a baseline for this roster is a good roster. Like, it's a solid, good roster. They are missing at some key positions, or as a whole, some stars or quote-unquote stars. Like, you have James Cook, you have Josh Allen. I think Deion Dawkins is a star at left tackle. I think Spencer Brown's, like, almost there, but not like a star, but a very good right tackle. Obviously not the problem. I think Christian Benford's a star. And then you start really finding guys. Like, is it Ed Oliver? But is Ed Oliver ever healthy? Like, in order to be a star, you got to be healthy. Like, Greg Rousseau, yeah, like 6 games a year, he's really good. Other games, he doesn't show up. So you're missing key players. Like, I know A.J. Brown has some issues with the Eagles. I don't care. Like, A.J. Brown and Josh Allen would be awesome. The
Score touchdowns and win games. I don't care.
The Bills had Stephon Diggs in the building. You're telling me A.J. Brown is a worse locker room guy than what Stephon Diggs was in Buffalo at the end?
No.
There's no way. Like, no. Is George Pickens going to be as bad as Stephon Diggs was at the end? No, I don't care. George Pickens, when he gets the ball, produces. Yeah. And you have Josh Allen throwing you the ball instead of – and look, I think Dak Prescott had a good year, but obviously Jalen Hurts was not meeting the standards of that pass offense. So, yeah, I think Brandon Bean needs to go just add – you got to add talent. Like, you need to find ways to get this talent level, because if you add a couple key star level players or Pro Bowl level players or just really like A- type of players to this roster, all of a sudden you're talking about the depth guys or the guys that are in certain positions. They kind of move up or they move down, but that creates a deeper roster and that creates a more talented roster. Yeah, I think you got to find a way to just add talent to this roster. I think obviously you got to nail the head coach job. And I want to go off. I know this is going away from your question, Dave, but Lance said about like the pressure of a new coach. It's really tough to be a new coach heading into this situation, because like John Harbaugh heading into the Giants, right? They're expected to win games, but like if they go 8-9 next year, 7-10, they're moving in the right direction. If this team goes like 9-8 next year or 10-7, like I don't want to be I would love to be on your guys' show, but like I don't want to be like it's a toxic. It becomes really toxic, and especially if it's Clint Kubiak or Jesse Minter or Chris Shula. Young guys that are doing this for the first time, that is a really tough role to go in. You're expected to probably win the Super Bowl next year. And what coach comes into a situation like that? Like maybe outside of the Baltimore coach, whoever gets the Baltimore job, like they're not expected to win the Super Bowl, but like they're just up there with Buffalo in the sense of they have a franchise quarterback. They have a top 5 quarterback. They're expected to win a ton of games. You don't get that if you take the Atlanta Falcons job or you take the Arizona Cardinals job. Like the Arizona Cardinals won 3 games. If you win 6 games next year for the Arizona Cardinals, you had a great year because you doubled your win total. It's really tough for what the Bills are going into. If you're a new head coach, so you have to make the right hire, because if this guy is just not ready for that moment, and like if he's not ready, it could spiral on you really quickly. And then all of a sudden, we talk about wasting a Josh Allen year. You really wasted a Josh Allen year because you didn't even give him a chance in the postseason.
Lance, what do you got, man?
Yeah, my number one thing is to get George Pickens, really. And I just think that Pickens is the guy that can help work with Josh. Josh wants to throw that 50-50 ball. Pickens has got one of the widest catch radiuses you can have, and it's a great skill set from what I've seen. The attitude thing, that's the coach's job to fix. So this guy better be ready to be able to handle some superstars, and then let's bring him in. So no excuses now. It should be a high-flying, exciting offense that scores 50 points a game, because Sean McDermott was holding the offense back, and now we're not going to have that as an excuse. So now it better be Josh Allen going balls to the wall. He better have people to throw to, and let's go beat every team 50-40.
Josh Allen and Justin Jefferson would feed families. I like him way better. I mean, I know Pickens is a free agent and Jefferson's going to cost $1 bazillion dollars. But
every pick.
If you want to make a statement, there's your statement. Go get arguably the best wide receiver over the last 4 years, and go get him. He's young. You could do whatever you want with his contract. Make him feel welcome in a not catching passes from McCarthy and some other guys and things like that. One thing, and we'll close on this, and one thing that I thought about yesterday watching the Houston Texans is they thought they had their quarterback. Imagine that defense with Josh Allen.
Could we trade it for that defense? Like, is that?
I'm just saying we have, and I can see why this might sound like I'm glad they fired McDermott, but it's not. It's really not. And I think that's what the Bills, watching the Houston Texans defense, not just when they beat Josh Allen and they just crushed our offensive line, watching them operate how they operate, when it's not just 1 or 2 or 3 guys, it's the whole 11 guys working off each other. That's what I think the Bills were trying to do with Sean McDermott. You have the quarterback that can control the offense and do all that. We need a defense that can smother teams. And then you play complementary football. We've heard that for how many years? Complementary football. I just hope that the guy they bring in is capable of, dealing with the fact that there's just endless amounts of pressure, because you're following a guy who went 98-50 in the regular season. You're following a guy that these players loved endlessly. There's players that haven't played for the Bills in 2 or 3 years that were posting stuff on social media about Sean McDermott, not as a coach, but as a man, and how he treated them as a person. And I think this new guy, that has to be part of it. And I know that's very hard. We talk about culture all the time. Whenever there's a new coach hired, it's always, I'm going to change the culture, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And so I feel like the pressure's on Brandon Beane, man. Like you gotta nail this head coaching search. You got to nail this offseason. You got to nail the draft. You're going to have to find some salary cap somewhere. You're going to have to figure it out, because if the Bills don't make the playoffs or lose in the wild card, the fan base is going to revolt. In that nice, shiny $1 billion stadium, they're going to revolt. So
is it even the new coach's fault? Like, it's like,
no,
it's his
not. First
year coach. Like if it's 𝐃𝐨𝐽 or if
it's not at all.
It's his first year coaching as a head coach. Like,
do we as fans have the common sense to say, okay, the team plays different, they're better in XYZ than they were last year under McDermott? We can see there's new players, there's younger, the draft was really good, whatever it looks like. They lost in the wild card round. I think the fan base is going to go ballistic, but if there's a vision, I think, like the Bears, okay, like Ben Johnson inherited a bad team and flipped them around. He had a good quarterback and some okay pieces and completely changed that team.
I wish he was available. That's the coach you need available this offseason.
That's
the problem with. Sorry, I know we're trying to
say same thing.
But if you're going to make a move, you made the move this today, and I don't think it's based off the Denver loss. It's based off what whatever's happened the last 9 years leading up to the Denver loss, other playoff losses, whatever you want to call it. If you were going to make a move, you had a chance to get either Ben Johnson. Vrabel was never going to come to the Bills. He's a Patriots guy, so we can put that aside. You had a chance to get Ben Johnson or Liam Cohen. I would take probably both over 𝐿𝐴𝐾. Like, I think.
Yeah, but we didn't know that last year that they were going to be as successful as they are. It's like hindsight.
I know, but Ben
right?
Johnson was like a hot commodity. Like, Ben Johnson was a very. I just don't know if we look. They hired 𝐿𝐴𝐾. Bills win the Super Bowl next year, or the Bills are like way better, whatever, and they're better than Ben Johnson and Liam Cohen. That could 100% happen. What I'm scared about, and I don't trust everyone right now, is why didn't they make this move like last year and go get Ben Johnson? Because if your job opens, it's a better job than the Chicago job. And you would think you would be able to get Ben Johnson, to get out of that division, because that division.
One of those guys would have came here last year in a heartbeat.
And if you want to get Ben Johnson out of that division,
it's always going to be the best head coaching position. If you take all 32 teams and none of them have head coaches, where do the Bills rank? Probably top 3, if not two, if not 1.
If you get the Chiefs job open with Mahomes, right? You have Mahomes and like all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I mean, it's tough because this guy's going to have to come in. First off, he's going to have experienced coordinators. It can't be young. It's going to have to be, I get, Jim Schwartz or somebody to run this defense, and I get a really good offensive mind to help me on that side of the ball, even if I'm an offensive-minded head coach. And they're going to have to make the AFC Championship game, because that is the least you can get to. That's not worse than where you were the year before. Because if they lose in the wild card of the divisional round, everybody's coming with a pitchfork for Brandon Beane's head, because we could have done that with Sean McDermott. We know, like Lance said, to his point, we know Sean McDermott is going to get this team, 10, 11, 12 wins every year. That's what he's done the last 9 years. That's what they've done. The lowest amount they've in with Josh Allen was 10 wins, and that was his second year. So, I mean, I don't know. You guys have any closing thoughts before we get out of here? Anything else you guys want to add?
My closing thought is, you have Josh Allen. We're fine. Relax. Take a breath. They're going to do the right thing, maybe. But at the end of the day, you're not going to – it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world at all. We're fine.
Peter, what do you got, brother?
When Sean McDermott was hired, I was 16 years old. The next coach, by the time the next coach will be hired, I probably will be 25. I'll be 25 in like 11 days here. So it's a 9-year difference there. I don't know what my 16-year-old thought when we hired Sean McDermott. I was just probably happy we didn't have Rex Ryan anymore. Yeah. But it's weird. I was 16 when we hired Sean McDermott. The new coach, I'll be basically 25. I'm like in a whole different world, part of my life. It's weird. It feels really weird. That's the only thing I've known for 9 years. I was in high school. I was a junior in high school the last time heading into my junior year when the Bills hired Sean McDermott. So that's freaky. In my second year at a full-time job out of college. So now I'm old, but it's just weird to think.
Lance, what about you, brother?
Yeah, I'm gonna be, analyzing every move from here on out. Now it's as I would have anyway, but I guess there's a microscope now on the moves they make. What players stay, what players go, how do they revamp the roster? Is it going to be ripping Band-Aids off and mass overhaul, or is it going to be slow, gradual changes at strategic positions? We'll see what their plan or how their plan sort of lays out. But again, the problem with the whole plan that they have is they've got a if then but thing, and if the first thing they wanted doesn't work out, how far down the line do they get before they land on what they can actually do? And that's the unfortunate reality, that they can't just have whatever they want. And I'll say we're going to talk more on Thursday night on the Triple Coverage podcast. So if you would join me for that, would love to have you out there as well. Yeah.
Shameless plug. I'm
on the Built-in Buffalo Network.
On all of our platforms. Yes. I'm cautiously optimistic, because we've talked a lot negatively tonight about Brandon Beane. I have seen him do some good things. I don't know what this new role would look like and how he will excel at it, succeed at it, or fail at it. I'm kind of intrigued about a change with how the team, the schemes on offense, the schemes on defense. I'm kind of a lot of the things that I was concerned with about, I bitched about Joe Brady all season about the offense. I'm kind of excited to see where they go in that direction, to see what kind of offense they give to Josh Allen. I'm kind of excited to see if Brandon Beane adds some positions on the offense. I'm also kind of excited to see what a different defensive system looks like in Buffalo, right? I mean, we talk about the Jim Schwartz defense, what was that, 2014, I believe, when they had all those sacks and they had all that crazy defensive line with Kyle Williams and Mario Williams and all that. I'm kind of interested to see the guys that are on the roster, like the Greg Rousseaus and Ed Olivers and things like that, how those guys would perform in a different system.
Yeah.
I'm just generally like, I'm intrigued. I'm not saying they will be better or worse. I'm just kind of interested to see how Brandon Beane's going to maneuver having no salary cap until it obviously increases here in a few weeks. I'm interested to see what the thought process is for the draft. I'm interested to see, obviously change is always tough for a lot of people. But like Lance said, I'm going to overanalyze the shit out of everything. Every single player that's signed, drafted, every assistant coach that's going to be hired, all that stuff. So I think it's hard because we haven't had to, we always knew that when the offseason came around, it was going to be Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane. We always knew when the draft came around, we'd get the shots of Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott in the room when training camp and all that stuff. It was, like Peter said, for 9 years, it's been Sean McDermott, with that flat bucket hat on at training camp. And now it's a different guy out there. And it's going to be a shock, obviously, not just to us, but to those players too. Hopefully, it's going to be something that we can look back on and say, it was a tough move. We were all kind of heartbroken, but we got this guy and he took us, to the promised land. So that's all I got to say about that. For Rob, for Peter, and for Lance, I'm Dave Myers. This has been First and 5. We will see you guys throughout the week. Let me get a simultaneous Go Bills. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Go Bills.